Hello and welcome to Bendy, a podcast about being flexible in all of the ways that means. Thanks for joining us. My name is Andy Young and I'm one of your brave Urbian hosts. Joining me as always is our other brave and Urbian host, Beth Martin. Beth, a pleasure as always. What's the
Andy,
crack?
it's always a pleasure. And as with every week, I don't know what word you're talking about. What does urbane mean?
It means like sophisticated and like
Oh, yes.
knowledgeable,
Uh-huh.
worldly, right? Which, obviously we both are
Worldly.
deeply worldly. Oh, I can barely say that word.
Oh.
Worldly. Yeah. It's
Captions is gonna have fun with that.
oh yeah, it is.
um, what's the crack? So I learned something
Mhm.
that the kids are saying these days.
Oh.
I know. So for our younger demographic, apparently you age yourself if you say cell phone. It's
So
just
interesting.
phone.
Quite
It's just a
interesting.
phone. Isn't that strange?
I like that one. Yeah, I
Do you
there's
say phone or do you say cell phone?
we say phone, but cell phone's not really, it's mobile phone would be the kind of old version of
Mo.
that. For us, I think it's probably just phone now because like even the idea of like a home phone is kind of wild and offensive to a lot of young people now. It's like, what? You have a home, a phone in your house? So yeah,
So that was a fun fact that I learned.
I I do love finding out those sorts of things. Like the term extra.
No,
So
yes,
well, you
no,
probably know the word extra,
I
obviously.
do.
But if you describe somebody as extra, it means they're like
Yes,
a bit much.
yes,
You're extra. And
yes.
I only find that I think it's even an old one now. That's probably even dating myself, but I found that out pretty recently and love it. Love it.
Yeah, if anybody has slang terms that we need to be hip to, please let
Yeah.
us know.
That the youth uses.
And I will stop saying cell phone.
Yeah. We'll try.
um but it's funny because like we have an old car from like 1980 something that actually
Hmm.
has a car phone. So I can say car phone.
That's awesome. Is it like a big chunky boy?
It's a chunky. I have yeah, my dad he had kept a museum of cell phones. So I still have we have the brick. Do you remember the brick?
Nice.
Yeah.
Like I feel like you didn't tend to see them loads. I mean, I was very young at the time, so I don't remember, but like only remember we sort of get like the Nokia ones, which are quite chunky, and then it just
Hmm.
all went insane from there.
Yeah. The flip phone and the BlackBerry. Anyways, I went to a speakeasy last night.
Ooh.
I know, in a mall.
Hmm.
So you're like at the mall, and then like you go in this like shop, and they've got all these like drinks for not drinks, but like really expensive, amazing bottles of different types. I should have gotten a photo of all of like the Irish whiskey
Oh
section,
yeah.
and but I didn't do that. But maybe I will next time. But and then you walk in, and it's like that scene from Indiana Jones in the Last Crusade, or yeah, Last Crusade, where
Hmm.
they're in the castle and they're like tied to the chair
Yeah.
in front of the fireplace, and
Hmm.
one of them like touches the button and the whole thing swings around, and the Nazis are in the other room. That's
Yes.
what it was. So you sit in the chair and the whole thing swings around, and then
Amazing.
you're in a speakeasy. It was really cool. And I ordered a Cosmo, and they were like, we don't serve that here. But
Wow.
they were like, we don't have cranberry juice, but we'll come up with something similar. And I was like, okay. So again, I'm not cool. I'm not cool.
Is it
Not
like
even with
it's a speakeasy format, but it's like legal, or is it on the DL? Can you not reveal where
you
you went?
know, uh it was busy. It was crowded.
Okay, okay.
And like I've been to another one in San Francisco where you had to like make a reservation, and then at a certain time they would give you like the code word for the
Yeah.
day. And if you don't have the code word for the day, you can't get in, and then you go into the restaurant, and then you have to find like the bookcase, and then there's someone standing by the bookcase, so you have to say the code word, and then you go into this other room. It's like a room within a room within a room.
Yes.
So they have them. And it's interesting, both that I've been to don't serve food.
Oh, that's
So
interesting. They just want to get
yeah,
you. They just want to get you liquored up.
Basically, yeah. But it's all like decorated like the 1920s. It
Yeah,
was very cool. Like Prohibition in America kind of thing.
that's awesome.
Um, and then on a sort of emotional mental health checkup stuff, I was talking to my therapist and I was just like, I'm trying to do all the things, right? I'm working on this and I'm working on that, and I'm trying to do yoga and I'm trying to meditate and I can't journal. I'm not doing all the things that I normally do. And she was like, what if you just give yourself permission to like not do them? And I was like, what?
Yeah,
And she was like, what if you change your schedule? What if you do yoga for 5 minutes or
yeah,
not at all? What if you journal a sentence instead of like pulling cards and writing 2 pages? And like, what if you just give your permission? Like, she's like, you're busier now than you were before. You're capable of doing things, more capable than you were 6 months ago. Like,
right.
you're gonna have to change your life a little bit to make room for all these other things that are bringing you, I'm going to say it, that are bringing you joy.
Yeah,
Andy,
I love to hear it.
I know. So that's been
That's
making me
huge.
feel less crappy about myself in general. So
Yeah,
yeah.
good. No,
So
I'm very glad to hear
yeah. So what's the crack with you?
it. So I started a new job on Sunday, and I'm driving cars for a car rental place. I wouldn't name the car rental place, just better safe than sorry.
Okay.
It was interesting because it was like mostly me in a car with like 60 plus year old men driving back and forth to pick up rental cars. um, it was good. It was like just as a way to kind of I'm basically trying to listeners, I'm trying to pack as many sort of working hours in one day to kind of get all my bills paid in one sort of day, get out of the way, basically. This was my first shift of this, so it seems to be going well. So we'll see what happens. But
You need to get all of the stories you can from them.
oh, I'm already hearing like there's already so much like in office fighting and like tales of like sub managers gone rogue and whatnot. So I'm like, this is amazing. I just love like sitting back and listening to people talk. And it's perfect. But it was good. It was a good start. And although it's a long old day, it was like at
10
9 o'clock.
hours.
It was 9 to 11 hours.
Okay. Those are like nurses' hours, doctors'
Yeah.
hours. Eesh.
And obviously, what I'm doing is as, if not more important than doctors and nurses, driving cars.
Well,
I'm joking. That was a joke. Doctors and nurses, you're very important. I love
you
you. You're
are.
amazing. I know what I'm doing is basically pointless, but it pays the bills.
Well, people need their cars.
They do, exactly.
You're helping tourism
I
and
am.
people to have experiences, and that
Oh,
is important.
it is. That was almost the perfect segue to our topic this week, but we still got
I
a
have
little
to,
bit
yeah,
more to do, don't we?
we do.
So,
I have something.
so Beth, before we get started with that, what's
Uh-huh.
occurring? No, that's not right.
Occurring. No,
I overpronounced that. Right? Okay.
okay, do it again.
What's occurring?
Okay. So we got some feedback on I can't remember which episode. Listeners, if you remember, let me know. I think it might have been episode 3, 4, or 5 or 6. So we were talking about how, because you and I have a hard time like finding joy
Yeah.
in being alone.
Yeah.
And so one of our wonderful dear friends, Katie, reached out and was like, you asked if anyone finds joy in being alone. That's me, alone in a forest, on the beach, sitting in a crowded cafe, even in my car. Joy for me is in those moments that life kind of just stops. You feel alone and totally connected all at once. And I love that idea of being surrounded by people and yet putting up all the boundaries and the barriers and just being like, I'm having an experience surrounded by other people by myself.
Yeah.
And
That's
I like that a lot.
it's awesome. Yeah, it really is. It's I would
And
find
it's
it
so
hard to do.
foreign. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
that's like it's such a foreign idea because you know I think maybe both of us are people that like to fill space.
Yes, very much so.
And talk to
Yes.
people. So I don't know. I may like go to a coffee shop after the Thanksgiving craziness and just sit and do something by myself and just be surrounded by people. Because I remember, like, I've done that with my, like, maybe like when when you travel and you're walking around and you are surrounded by other
Yeah.
people and you're solo traveling, like that's what she's talking about, I think.
Like, yeah, and it's something I do enjoy, but I certainly I find it a little bit tough to like even do those sorts of things. And
Mhm.
even the thought of that's kind of giving me heart palpitations. It's like I like it in theory, but I know that like I will just, go nuts very quickly unless I'm sort of
Yeah.
stimulated in some way or
Yeah,
another.
yeah. So if that's helpful for anybody else, I just thought I would share. And then this is for our last episode on emotional health. I read an article and I posted it to our Facebook page and also to our website. It's an article called Why Men Don't Have Enough Close Friends,
Yeah.
which is so topical. Literally, some of the words that we used in our episode are in this article. I don't know which
Yeah.
came first, but chicken or egg, us or
Yeah.
CNN.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to read a couple of blurbs because it was fascinating. It says boys don't start emotionally disconnected. They become emotionally disconnected. Boys receive messages that growing up and manning up,
Yep.
shedding that soft side. They
Hmm.
actually use the word soft side, and we talked
Well,
about that
you
with
did.
you. A mindset that neuroscience, social science, and developmental psychology all show is harmful to them. We gender relationships as feminine. If that's a feminine thing, it becomes a weakness or a liability if men admit to needing friendships. The key is to move beyond. So here's what you can do.
Hmm.
The key is to move beyond banter and liability if men. Oh, sorry. Key is to move beyond banter and general niceties and ask questions you find meaningful, such as what friends like about their jobs or what happens to their feelings after breakups. Don't worry, it's not rude to do so. Most people report wanting to be asked these questions. Research has shown close friendships protect our mental and physical health, and men who prioritize those relationships are fighting off one of the most harmful things about human health, loneliness.
Mm.
Boo, I
Yeah.
can't mic drop because I need it right
Do
now,
you
but
want to
I
just
thought,
like dunk a basketball or something instead? Yeah,
ah!
there you go. So Beth, if you're listening, she's dunked a basketball. It's a sweet dunk as well.
I
Yeah,
was, yeah. Isn't that interesting?
it's so interesting, and I think it's so. I mean, it needs to be said, and I'm glad that there's articles out there. I mean, I feel like the problem is that a lot of the guys who really kind of struggle with that sort of stuff aren't ever going to read an article like that, sadly. And I feel like,
That's a
do you know
good
what I
point.
mean? And it's
Yeah,
like as much as I wish there was a way to kind of spread that word further. But
that's what we're doing.
exactly. So just point them to our last episode, folks. If yeah, and then they can like, who is this guy? Soft, not me. I'm hard. Etc. Etc. the other the other like I'm not going to pronounce her name incorrectly. The feedback we got from one of my friends was that Beth sounded like, is it Brienne
Brene Brown.
Brene Brown. Okay, good lord. Which I thought was lovely. Once I didn't realize who it was at first, but it was lovely when I found out.
Tell them what the feedback was.
Oh, the feedback was that you sounded like Brienne Brown and
Brene.
Brene. Oh no, I'm so sorry, Brene Brown. I'm sure you're very talented. I'm not aware of you. Um, and that Beth sounded just like her, which we thought was lovely because she is a professional podcaster and she also does, I think she does TED Talks and things like that as well,
Yeah, she's
which
an
was
author.
awesome.
I mean, worldwide, national. I don't. That's not a thing. She's a worldwide best-selling author,
I understand.
who does like social research, and
Okay.
it's a compliment to even be in the same room name space as her.
Amazing.
So
Well, she can maybe
that
come on the podcast sometime. We'll
maybe
invite her
someday
on if
she'll
she
be
wants.
someone someday will be like, you sound like Beth Martin, Brene.
She were like, thank you.
Right.
I'll
So
just have,
Brene, we'd love to have you on.
yeah. I will definitely learn how to pronounce your name
Well,
by
and
the time you're on.
honestly, a lot of the stuff that she talks about is around vulnerability,
Yeah,
and that's kind of what we talk about. So that's great. That's great feedback.
good synergy. Yeah,
So yeah, totally.
awesome.
Do you want to dive into, or do you have the whole name of the topic written out?
Oh no, I don't have the. I
I
do have it
do.
written. Okay,
I
you
do.
do it then, please. I
Okay.
have it
So
in front of me.
this is part one
Yeah.
of True Tales of Tragic Travel. Da, da, da.
So I guess we had such nice feedback from people in the travel episode, and multiple others wanted us to talk a little bit more about travel. And Beth and I have both had some really kind of interesting, not all negative experiences necessarily, but interesting and wild and weird experiences. So we just thought we would spend a wee bit of time talking about those. And obviously, as in any episode, if you have any tales, wild and weird tales, please send them to us as well.
We will read them.
We will read them.
We will read them.
You can bet on
it. Brene
it.
Brown will read them to you in
Yes, so Brene, send in your weird, wild travel tales, please.
Yeah.
So I guess, Beth, do you have anything you'd like to kick off with?
I have so many that are so weird. I think I'm gonna start with shark cage vomit diving. So I was 5 months pregnant with Harper, and we went to Oahu, one of the islands in Hawaii, for like they call them baby moons, where you go and you're like, can't drink and you can't eat raw fish, and you go somewhere and you hang out. And so I was like, we love scuba diving, and like we were both bummed, right, that we couldn't dive. And like Mike was so good. We went whale watching on a boat. It was super fun. And then he was like, okay, tomorrow I have a surprise for you. Like we're gonna get up early, and I'm gonna try and shorten this because it's a long story and I can ramble. So be up early. And I'm like, okay. So we get up and get in the car, drive up to the marina, and there's a big sign that says shark cage diving. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so excited. Like if I can't dive with sharks, at least I can be in a cage with them. So I'm like trying to hide the fact that I'm pregnant, because you're not allowed to be pregnant on these, it's all because it's like 3 miles out. They've got a cage. It's actually cemented to the bottom of the ocean. So the boat goes out there, and you get out of the boat into the shark cage. And, I've got my snorkel gear on. We've got the GoPro camera. And I remember like settling down into the bottom of the cage and just like being like, here I am. And like, there's lemon sharks and, there's sharks, whatever. But what I could hear all of a sudden, I was like, what the fuck is that sound? And I'm going to butcher this, but it was like, ooh. And I'm like, holy shit, it's a fuck. They're humpback whales singing to each other.
Oh, wow.
I know. It was the coolest thing. So I'm just like down there. I come up and I'm like, oh my God, I hear whales. And Mike goes down, and like, we're like, it's so cool. So we got it on GoPro. And then all of a sudden, like all this little particulate started floating around. And we came up and I was like, are they chumming? The water is that way. Like all the sharks are here, because there were sharks everywhere. And there was this like one girl wearing like a super like cute, I was in my like rash guard and like, not my cutest outfit, whatever. And she was in like this string bikini and like trying to look beautiful. And like, it's 3 miles, it's heavy, choppy water. It's not for the faint of heart, right? And all this particulate, like little like bits of it looks like fish bits, right? So it's like, they must be chumming. And I'm like, Mike, it's chum. And he's like, no, that lady over there in the string bikini just puked and we're swimming in it.
Oh no.
The end.
Wow, that's wild. Yeah. What a freaking where do you even start with that one? That's insane.
I don't know.
What experience though? Like I thought that, like, I mean, first of all, I kind of thought that whale song was something that you couldn't really pick up with the human ear, I guess. Maybe that was my understanding. So what an incredible experience. Yeah, very
It was
nice.
very cool. And I apologize to everyone for the whale sounds that I made.
It's very accurate. I apologize to any whales listening.
You look so confused. You're like, what could that be? So yeah,
Amazing.
so that's one that one it was pretty tragic knowing that, yeah, that like I'm swimming around in vomit.
Yeah, I know. Like, oh,
No one wants that.
it
And
reminds
you
me
couldn't
of
get out of the cage, right? You're stuck.
it reminds me. It's I have a listen, but like it reminded me of something. Like I really don't want to talk about it because it's so gross.
Okay, it's fine.
But other materials in swim pools that were very disgusting.
Okay.
Anyway,
What
so
about you?
the one that, like, and I was trying to, I couldn't remember the name of the place, and I did try to look it up, but I can't. I feel like it's K song. I don't know. Anyway, right. So the story is about I went to North Korea twice. I don't think I talked about this in our last.
You
I
talked about how you went, but you didn't really go into detail.
I just touched on it, didn't I? Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm
Yep.
going to talk about both those trips were pretty insane for different reasons. So I'm going to talk about trip number one. I may save trip number two for next. No, this is trip number two, but I think trip number one was more interesting. So they're both cool though. So I went to North Korea twice, and technically three times because it was at the border, and you get the JSA or joint security area, and it was like on both kind of sides of that. But
The what area?
the joint security area, so there's
Joint
like,
security area.
yeah, at the the where the border basically
Yeah.
is. There's
I heard
basically
joint security area.
joint security area. I've only had two drinks. No, I haven't had any drinks. I haven't had any drinks. And basically it's an intense sort of setup there as well. It's got like the world's most dangerous golf course on it because there's like landmines everywhere. It's nuts. But even that's
What?
oh,
What?
it's so intense
I
there
have to
because
Google the what?
so basically, right, there is a um there's the border wall that's heavily guarded, one of the most heavily fortified, I think, in the world between North Korea and South Korea. At a point, I think in about somewhere around the middle, there is an area that is tourists can go visit. And so you have one side with the sort of, barracks for like the North Korean troops, and the other side is barracks with South Korean troops, and you have them like basically standing there staring at each other. It's really intense. And like you can go into this hut, and one half of the hut's in North Korea and one half of the hut's in South Korea. And like so you could be in both, countries.
One foot in the one and one foot in the other.
Yeah, like that was there's like a place you can be in like five states at the same time or something like that.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So this isn't even the story I was trying to tell, but yeah, I'll just so basically there is a lot of overgrowth, a lot of like wild land that is untouched, that is like been heavily mined and things like that. And I believe it was because there's a fairly substantial American military presence in Korea, so there's a lot of American troops there as well.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them set up a golf course at one point or another. And I think it's only
That's what we
is
do.
of course. I mean, there's a lot of free land. You can see why they would want to. And I think it's as many as nine holes, but like I know that's small for a golf course, but still, it's a lot for that area. And oh, excuse me. And yes, there's that golf course is supposed to be the most dangerous in the world because there are landmines everywhere. If your ball goes off the fairway or the green or whatever, it could potentially roll into a mined area. Nuts.
Wow.
Yeah, right.
Wow. Okay, this is blowing my mind. Keep going.
And there's actually a film called Joint Security Area. It's not super about this, but it's kind of one of the biggest sort of Korean films ever. But it's interesting and kind of is a wee bit of a window into what that whole sort of reality is like. But that was nuts. That's all I can really remember about that. That was a good trip. The one that I was going to start talking about was I did a day trip, and I think the place is Kaesong. I can't remember. I couldn't find the name. But it's almost like a kind of model city. So like it's the place that they like. They certainly at the time, which was what, maybe 12, 13 years ago for me. It was the model city they would let you into, and it was an example to kind of show the rest of the world this is how
I think I've
well
seen a documentary about this where
it
it's
was.
like false fronts on
Yes,
buildings and stuff.
and that's exactly what it was. So I think the memories I have of it, because we went on this trip, some of my friends came over to visit me, and the three of us went on a trip, and it was Korean. It was a trip for Koreans. So like all of the sort of the tour guide was talking to us in Korean. There was a guy there who could speak English, who was kind of like filling us in a little bit, but a lot of stuff just we didn't understand. But it was fine. We were just kind of looking out the window and kind of drinking it all in. And exactly that. There was like tons of shops. So that it was like really nice. There was tons of like shops, but like you would see in the window, the shops, you have some mannequins, and the mannequins would be like, dressed in fashions or whatever. But if you looked even a little bit beyond, you would see that there's nothing in the shop. It was complete fabrication. I think all the ones certainly I noticed were like that. And so we did that. On the way in, the guy who was leading us sang what I was told was a really patriotic North Korean song about how great the glorious leader was. And we got there, we did a bit of a tour of the city. It wasn't super, you kind of, you're very restricted, in terms of like, you're led from one place to another and you just kind of have a look around. But what we were excited to try was, so North Korea's national beer is a thing called Taedong. It's funny that I cannot remember the name of the city, but I can remember the name of the beer. damning, damning indictment of myself. And so we wanted to get some bottles of that to bring back because it's essentially impossible to get. So you can get them in limited numbers in South Korea, but like I was there for a year and I wasn't able to get my hands on any of them.
Wow.
So we let them back. We brought like three back each. Um, and really delicious beer. And so we brought it back, and like some of those guys didn't drink the beer because they wanted to keep it. And I'm like, I'm definitely trying this. Like it's like, it's the people who freaking buy, action figures or toys or what or Lego
Yeah.
and keep them in the
And put
box.
them on a
What's
shelf. Yeah.
the point?
Yeah.
Anyway. So we took it back and it was fantastic. And I thought that I gotta put South Korea on blast here. Most South Korean beers were really bad. I found them to be very gassy, and I just really didn't like them at all.
Like
Um,
gassy is in too many bubbles or like
yes,
farty?
too many
Ah,
bubbles and
okay.
resulting in fartiness. Yeah.
Fartiness. Okay.
But like this beer was so good. It was really delicious. And we then found out, we did some research and we found out that Taedong is actually a English beer. So what happened was many years ago, I think it was Kim Jong. I can't remember Kim Jong Un. I
Kim
think
Jong.
I'm trying to remember his father. I can't
Kim Jong.
remember.
I don't remember
That's not super
either.
important.
They're
You
gonna
can look it
come
up.
for
You can look
us.
it up, listeners.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Um, had been looking for a beer to represent North Korea. He sent guys out in the world to kind of like find him a beer. They found a brewery
What a
in
fun
England,
job.
right?
Go across the world and find the best beer
Amazing. And
in the name of patriotism.
well, this was the thing, right? So they apparently the buyers were just told somebody wants to buy your entire beer company for a really good price. And they were not told who it was for until it was happening. And then they found out. And apparently there's a term in this country where they talk about like they took the place brick by brick. I don't think they did actually. I mean, who knows? But they essentially replicated the brewery exactly in North Korea, and then it's essentially an English beer that is this kind of North Korea's national beer.
And they literally took it from the UK and it doesn't
Yep,
exist there anymore at all.
yep.
The recipe went with them.
Apparently so.
Wow.
So yeah, so that's
And you, Andy Young, have had 3 of those beers.
no. Yes, I have. With my friend, one of my friends, on the way through the kind of checkpoint, which is like you're told be on your best behavior going in and out of the checkpoints because they cannot on a whim just arrest you, so you really don't want that to happen. He dropped one of the bottles and it shattered everywhere. And we were like, oh no. Fortunately, he was okay, but that was a scary
Ooh.
moment. Yeah.
Were you nervous when you were there? Were you like sweaty palmed at any point
I was,
in time?
because that was my second trip, not as much. The first trip was definitely sweatier, and for a number of reasons, it was like definitely hairier. And
Okay.
we'll get into that. We'll get into
You
that in
can
a moment.
save it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
Okay. Tell us why you were sweaty palmed in
I mean,
North Korea.
more
Part
sweaty palm than
part one.
usual. Just to be
Uh-huh.
fair, you know.
Okay. I've got do you have questions, or is it okay if I just jump in with my
No,
next
no,
one?
jump into your next one, please
Okay.
do.
So um Mike lived in Jamaica for 6 months, I think, somewhere in his 20s. He was working
Hmm.
for this really cool program. It's called East West, and you spend a year going to 3 different locations around the world and studying marine biology. So he did the program, and then they ended up hiring him as their like scuba person in one of the locations, and he was in Jamaica. So he got to know Jamaica really well. We were dating, and he's like, let's go. And I was like, of course. One of the things, we went basically all over, went to Port Royal, Negril, Mo Bay, Montego Bay, but Mo Bay is how they say it. I don't know. I'm using Mike's lingo. But we ended up actually going up to the Blue Mountains and stayed in this place called Whitfield Hall. And there's no power. Is kerosene lamps, and they serve you breakfast and dinner. And there's like the staff, they're wonderful, and then there's this, I think I might have already told you this story, but
Go on.
I think, yep. But it's good enough for the world, apparently.
Yes.
So, and there's always like a giant vat of coffee on the boiler, like, and this beautiful Jamaican woman is like stirring it, and you can always just go in and dip your cup.
Amazing.
And we went hiking we went to the tallest peak, we were the highest people in Jamaica, because we hiked all the way up, like 13-mile hike, and down. And then we ended up leaving that day, and this German couple had been there. It's kind of like a hostel. Everybody shares a bathroom. And they had left their those old hiking pants that you would like zipper half of them, and they'd be shorts, and you zip them back, and then it'd be long pants. I don't even know if they make them anymore, but they were really hot for a while. Which, like, who doesn't want to walk around with zippers, like itching your knees, whatever. But they had left the bottom part, and this Jamaican lady, like this big woman, she's like, I want to make sure that they get their pants back. Can you call them and maybe meet them, on your way down the mountain? And Mike's like, yeah, absolutely, whatever you need. And so she's like, okay. So she takes her phone and she puts it up to her nipple on her shirt, and she's rubbing the phone to clean it off for Mike.
Wow.
On her big boob, and hands it to him. And you can see he's like taking it, and he's like, okay, like,
thanks.
And they didn't answer. And anyways, we ended up having to mail them their pants. But it was just like that moment of like some woman rubbing a phone onto their boob and then handing it to Mike, and him having to put it up to his face and try and talk to these people who speak German, and he does not. Anyways,
Yeah.
So that's that story.
That's
It was
lovely.
it's such a great place, though. Like, I highly recommend Jamaica is a place to visit.
I so badly want to visit it. Yeah, it's definitely high on my list. Yeah.
Yeah. I was hoping to run into Keith Richards, but like we drove by Bob Marley's house.
Nice.
We went to Kingston. Oh, I do have one other little story about Kingston. So there's this really popular place. They make jerk chicken. It's called Scotchies. So Scotch bonnet is a type of pepper.
Yes.
And so we knew we wanted to go to Scotchies because it was like super good. And we thought we found Scotchies. Okay, so we're sitting at this bar, and there's like these beautiful women, and like Mariah Carey is playing in the background.
Nice.
And it's just like, it has like this sexy vibe, right? and they don't sell you like you can't just order a cocktail, you have to order a pint of alcohol and then whatever mixer. So we
Wow.
ordered a pint of vodka and like we're sitting there and drinking, and I'm like, when are they gonna come and offer us chicken, right?
Yeah.
And these women kept looking at me and Mike and like looking at us weird and looking at me, and like, and then these men kept coming in and talking to the women and leaving with the women. And then I was like, I think this is a prostitute bar.
Right. Interesting.
Uh-huh. And I asked, I was like, is this Scotchies? And they were like, no, it's next door. And we were like, okay, we're gonna finish our pint and head that way. But like you could tell that they were like, are these people here because they want to like have a
Yeah.
threesome,
Yeah.
or like what is the situation? They could not figure us out, and we could not figure them out, and we were really in the wrong place.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so
Just these like thruples. Yeah.
I
Looking for a
know,
throuple.
I know.
Um, the funniest sort of like well, I have somebody that's a second hand story. I would so there's whenever I was in Thailand, there was I only saw this once, but it made me laugh so much. There was essentially like prostitutes driving around in mopeds, and their pimp also driving around a moped ahead of them, like being like, "Do you want some ladies?"
They're
I'm
right
like,
there.
"I'm good," and he was like, and I'm like, "It's very efficient because you're gonna hit loads of people. You know, you're gonna see lots of people on your driving around." But that was kind of wild. It was kind of wild how Thailand is really kind of repressed and very hard and all that sort of stuff, but also it's right out in the open air as well. I guess the locals, if they know who to pay off or whatever, or however these things go, you know. But
Mhm.
such an interesting environment. Um, so I have a story. It's about a crazy place. Some of your listeners might be familiar with it. It's called the United States of America. So it's just going to be snippets. So I did a I got a 1 month. I lived in North Carolina for about 5 months. I went to UNC for a semester, and at the end of that, one of my friends and I decided to get a month long Amtrak pass, and we took a train kind of in as many sort of areas around the US as possible. Amazing experience, really great time. I still have so many wonderful memories of that experience. But there was three specific things and like sort of encounters that I had that really kind of stayed with me. So the first one, I will end with the funniest and most rad one, but like the first one was we were in San Francisco. I think San Francisco at that time, because that would have been, let me see, that would have been very late 90s, like 99, 2000, I think. Um, I think the bloom was starting to come off the rose in San Francisco at that point. I think it was already starting to, because I think I had went thinking it's like, you know, hippie culture and really kind of rad and cool, but it really wasn't that.
It was
It
like
wasn't bad, but it wasn't what I was expecting.
becoming the tech industry.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And a guy really sort of theatrically bumped into my friend. And then I heard like this glass, like I had this sort of glass hitting the ground sort of thing. And this guy was like, "Hey, your friend knocked into me, and I was taking these bottles to get recycled, and I was going to get this much money for these bottles, and now you owe me this money, or else I'm going to fight you. I used to be a boxer and all this sort of thing." And I was like, I mean, we were like just, I mean, we were both super young. We were like 19, 20. So we were just like, you're rubbing in the headlights sort of thing. And um I was like, wait a minute, if you're recycling them, does it matter if they're smashed sort of thing? And we were at first like and we were like reaching for our wallets. And I then just went, you know what? We don't have time for this. Just grabbed my friend by the arm and walked off. And the reason I remember that so clearly, and the guy just didn't do anything. Guys, as I kind of suspect that he wouldn't, I kind of saw that. But the reason why I remember that is it's the first kind of clear time in my memory of me really like sticking up for myself. You know what I mean? Like a really kind of, you know, fighting
And you were
back and
like,
going, I'm
I'm gonna
done with
run
this.
away.
Yeah. And it's so it's glued into my brain, you know. I know, no, yeah, not sticking up for myself and actually fighting or like getting into it with somebody, just being like, I'm done.
I'm done.
I'm out of here.
done.
See ya. Uh, so yeah, that was a good one. But two other ones were I also met a guy who in Colorado Springs.
Hmm.
We were staying in hostels, a really amazing hostel. Actually, it was very cool. It was like just the sort of hostels I don't think you really get so much anymore. But it was like this had this big open plan living room with all these old, like the owner had all these old sort of vinyl records, and we could like sit and listen to music and all. It was really fantastic. And there was this guy, got to be in his 80s or 90s, who was telling us about his experiences in like World War II. He had like a beret on, he had medals and stuff. And it was one of these things that like he was just talking about it. I was like, is this guy for real? We were a little bit suspicious of him, and also because we were like, young punks, so we were just like, yeah, whatever. And he was saying that he was going around, he was going to schools, and he was talking about schools about war, about World War II specifically, and what kind of nightmare it was, and just so the kids could learn, know their history and kind of learn from their history, I guess.
Hmm.
And as like he was there, we saw him for a couple of days, and as he left, he kind of gave us this sort of printout of this like leaflet or of this sort of newspaper article. And right enough, he was one of the paratroopers who was airdropped into France. He had had consulted with Steven Spielberg over Saving Private Ryan, all that sort
Wow.
of stuff. It was so nice, and he was such a kind of he was such a warm, nice man, and I still remember him talking about because I think he'd asked me where I was from, and I said I'm from Northern Ireland, and he goes, Ireland. He goes, I knew I knew some soldiers that I fought with in Ireland. They died with honor, and I was just like, that was, and he said it with such a solemn tone. It was just, it really
The
kind of
gravity.
reverberated with me. Um,
I'm like tearing up.
I know it was really nice. I couldn't find the article. I was digging around for it. I couldn't find it to get his name, but it was just such a lovely encounter. It really was. The final one was so on one of our legs of the journey. I think we were going from Chicago. I think this was from Chicago to Colorado Springs. Um, it was like a 24-hour train journey. It was nuts. It was too much time in a train. And I don't know how I got talking to him, but there was a guy. No, I know what happened was I needed to get some sleep, and I'm such a light sleeper, so I went to the smoking train because I was thinking nobody will be down there probably. I'm gonna get some sleep there. It didn't work out like that. There was some like young kids in there, like messing around, and there's this old dude with like a sleeveless t-shirt on, like long hair, beard, and he was like just talking to the kids in such a matter of fact manner, and like we all sort of ended up having a conversation about whatever, and like they were kind of being kind of assholes, and he was like not tolerating it, but in like a really kind of cool way. He was just kind of like laying it down for them, and such a nice guy. And then like he just took a shine to me, and he was like, let's go get some breakfast. I'm like, okay.
You're like, I'm already
And
awake.
huh? Yeah. I'm
I'm
like,
already awake.
yeah, exactly. I might as well. And we had some breakfast. That was my first time having like biscuits and gravy, which was awesome because I was like broke, and it was by far the cheapest thing that was available in the dining car.
Very filling.
Yes. And he proceeded to tell me his name was Chuck Watts. He was a like roadie. He had roadied for Hendrix. He had roadied for like tons of
Wow.
people. He had like he gave me his card. It was another thing I tried to find, but I couldn't. Unfortunately, if I do find it, I'll get links or I'll get pictures taken and links put up. His card was like $1 bill with him like rocking out where like one of the presidents would be,
That's what
and
we need for our business
right,
card.
it was so incredible. I love this so much, and he was just such an amazing guy. And he just like told me stories after stories. But the thing that I remember more than anything is in one of his stories, he talked about like going to this cabin with this girl. I don't know how we started talking about girls, but he talked about this encounter, and he goes, "Man, whenever she took her shirt off, it was like a Buick was driving towards you," and I didn't know,
Red lights.
really know what a Buick was, but it was just such a strong image. Oh, it just stayed with me. I remember, and I think that has like stayed imprinted in my brain forever. But it was such a rad encounter. I mean, that trip was pretty incredible, I've got to say. And I saw lots of the US there. I saw like Stop Making Sense in San Francisco for one of the very first sort of.
Did you really?
Yeah, it was incredible. And so yeah, it was just such a lovely, lovely trip. And that's sort of the end of that sort of
Yes.
the end of that
So
story.
who's the leader of Stop Making Sense?
David Byrne, who
So
is
yes, so he went to the college that I worked at, and so every year there's like a big Stop Making Sense party.
awesome.
And I think I want to say I've met him
So
because he would, yeah, anyways.
so I have a
So
weird, you know his
go ahead.
family's from here? From
No.
yeah.
Huh?
So yeah, he is. He's
From Carrickfergus?
well, no, from Northern Ireland, I would
Northern
say,
Ireland.
or I think possibly Ireland. I can't remember. I'm going to get in trouble
Okay.
for this, but
Okay.
um,
Oh, they're coming
but
for you.
I know. But one of my friends in university was his cousin, and she would be able to go over and stay in his like New York apartment and things like that. Her and the family did a couple of times. It was like because we only really found out in such like an odd way, and that like she was talking about going over to visit her cousin David, and being able to stay in this really fancy apartment. And one of my friends was like, "It's not David Byrne, is it?" And it's like, "Yeah, it is actually." Mad.
So cool. This is totally digressing, but
Yeah.
for your World War II, I'm curious, yeah, I'm curious as to who that was.
I think I know where it might be. I think I know the container it's in. I just haven't been able to find that container. So I'm going to try to find that because I think the article's in there. And I think Chuck Watts cards in there as well. I'm pretty certain I
Okay.
saw it. I've seen it within the past like 5 or 6 years. So hopefully it's still around somewhere.
Okay. So my dad was a history professor, and I used to go to class with him every so often.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the nights that he was teaching, he was like, "You should come tonight." I was like, "Okay." I think it was in high school. And this was back when you would use slide projectors. And so he would tell historical stories using photos. And I always remember just like him laying all the history books out with his like camera and taking the photos and, loading them on like getting the slides ready. And he was such a good teacher.
Mm.
I did flunk history my freshman year of college. But that's because I just knew it all, but I didn't pay attention. No. It's because the teacher was so terrible compared to my dad that I was just like, I can't even listen to you. But I remember it was about D-Day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he invited a guest speaker to talk, and this man was talking about, what it was like to land on Normandy Beach, and really, from the ground, like parachuting down, and other people coming in on the boats and right up to the beach, and just right away. And as my dad is as he's talking, my dad is going through these slides, and there's this one slide that he goes to, and it's a photo of these 4 soldiers, and they're all covered in blood and dirt, and just you can see I can't even, there aren't words for the looks on their faces.
Yeah.
And the guest speaker turns and he points to the second person, and he says, "That man right there, that is me."
Wow.
And I just like started crying, and my dad was like, "Holy shit." Like, and the whole class, like everyone just started freaking out.
Yeah.
And then as a gift to my dad, he actually had a little piece of his parachute.
Wow.
And he gave it to my dad. Yeah. So I don't know if my mom still has it or not, but that was my dad framed it and had it on the wall.
That's
so
incredible.
yeah. It's just like, I love that about you and that about him, that you would just take the time to actually, I might cry, just sit down and talk to someone and have a conversation. And then all of a sudden, right, like you have someone really becomes a human in front of you.
Yeah.
And all of their trials and tribulations, and also like, Buick analogies.
Yeah, Buick boobs, yeah.
Buick boobs. Like the
Buick
headlights in a car,
boobs.
get it?
Exactly.
But it's just it's so amazing. And that's I I hope that you keep that with you,
Yeah.
and you're a good listener and it serves you well.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I
Yeah.
think that's true. I do, and I really love it. I think I've said to you before, like I love, especially if somebody's passionate. I mean, like that's different. It's not really passion. It's more about stories in their lives. But I suppose there is that engagement there too. But like I love people talking passionately about something that they love or something that's of interest to them. I think there's nothing better than that. I mean, like I far prefer. I think it's also because I prefer listening to talking, so that. But yeah, but for sure, it's a good way to look at the world, I think.
Mm-hmm. Anyways, that was a super digression, but
It was good.
I wonder. I'm like, is it the same man?
I know it's possible. Maybe we'll find out for
Yeah,
next
I
week's
know.
episode.
I
If
know that would be super cool. Yeah,
yeah,
and I'll try. I don't have any of that information. Although maybe I'll ask
like
my mom.
what's interesting? If I can find this article, I'm pretty certain it has a photo of him in it, so that might be
Yeah,
helpful. So that might
yeah,
spark some memory.
that would be amazing.
Well, so I'll see what I can find.
See what you can dig up.
I will.
Okay. So let's see. There's so many. Okay, I went to South Africa.
Mm-hmm. Tell me.
I got drunk at an auction
Ooh, okay.
and bought a trip to South Africa because I minored in African studies and I wanted to be a primatologist once upon a time. I think I told you this.
Yes, you did. Remind me what a primatologist is again.
They study monkeys.
Okay.
And I wanted to be like Jane Goodall and go and then,
Yes.
just watch and observe. And I did a little bit of that in college at a research facility. And so I really wanted to go to Africa and just be there. And so we ended up buying a safari auction for a week in
Nice.
KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa, which is where the Zulu monarch lives
Mm-hmm.
and the Zulu tribes are. So we ended up going because we paid for it. And it's like a 50-hour flight to get to Durban. And then from Durban, you would drive to this. It was actually like a reserve or preserve, thousands and thousands and thousands of acres for all of these animals to roam free. And there were elephants and giraffes and hippos, and there were rhinos, and the rhinos actually had and I don't really have like one specific story. It was just all so amazing. Actually, no, I do. I have some photos that I need to put up about this. But so the rhinos actually had bodyguards. So 2 men with machine guns that would follow them around. And I'm assuming, right, they would switch them out. But that was their job, was to go hang out with the rhino and make sure that no one poached the rhino and cut the horn off.
That's nice.
So we got to see real rhinos. There were cheetahs that had babies. And it was all open, like that we had our little bunk houses and we had a guide, but really like there were no fences. And so you'd open your front door and like a family of warthogs would just like run in front. And of course me, I'm like, I think I'm Cinderella, right? All the animals are going to land on my shoulders, right? So I went up to Mama Warthog and I was like, what's up? And she was like, and like, ran towards me. And I was like, oh, okay. But, all these cute little like warthog tails running by. And so they had like early morning safaris, like, middle of the day safaris. And then you could actually go on a night safari. One of the other people that went out, like a hippo tried to attack their car. Like it was very, very wild. And you would see like they had these little deer called impala, like running around. And then at dinner they would be like, and tonight we're going to be having impala for our meal. And you'd be like, oh, all those photos I took, those little guys. But and then we went to it was a crocodile. Okay, so one thing I didn't know about hippos, they're very, very dangerous.
Yes.
And our guide it was super cool. He was so nice. So he took us out on two, I guess, interesting things that happened. Um, he wasn't afraid of anything. All these things that had happened, all these wild animals everywhere. But we went on this night drive at around 10 o'clock at night, and we're driving, and all of a sudden, like, this giant spider drops down and it crawls into the engine, and
Hmm.
he stops the safari vehicle, and he gets out, and his helper gets out, and they get their flashlights out, and they look terrified. So I don't know what the spider was. I
What?
don't know if they got the spider out. I don't know, like, anything, but it was just like the terror on their faces over this thing. Granted,
Yeah.
there were, like, you know, other things that were hunting us in the night.
Yeah.
They did not care about, they were worried about the spider. And then we went to and then I also found out his cousin, so hippos, there's a little town near the preserve called St. Lucia, and there are wild hippos everywhere. And his cousin got gored by a hippo in his backyard. He
Ooh.
was like, he heard something. He's like, what's back? Well, open the back door, walks out. Like, the hippo gores him in his stomach,
I was gonna
and he
say,
lived.
I was gonna
He
say, I'm
lived.
surprised he did live because I hear that
He
they are
did.
pretty
Yeah.
deadly a lot of the time.
They're,
Yeah.
yes. And they look adorable with their cute little flippy
Yeah.
ears and everything. And you just want to hug them, but you can't.
I think they're like probably the most dangerous sort of mammal in Africa. I think it's something like that.
I
They're
would
up there.
say just because they live in suburbia, right?
Yeah.
And so when they're in your backyard, like, what do you do?
Yeah, it's
I
true.
don't
They're
know.
huge.
So
Yeah, that's
they're
true.
big. They're
Yeah.
big. So um and then I remember we were on a beach in the St. Lucia area, and they have these boats. I can't remember what they're called, but there's a certain type of boat that actually will just, like, drive up on the beach. So we walk out to the beach, and there's a warning sign, right? And it's like, warning, crocodiles, sharks, and hippos. We're like, cool, okay, we're not going to swim here. And then, like, I turn around and there's a boat coming at us, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And I just stand there like an idiot.
Hmm.
And Mike's like, as the boat keeps coming and keeps coming, and it's big, right? And he's
Yeah.
like, it's going, like, you need to move, we need to move, it's coming. And it did. Like, so we started running as fast as we could. The boat nearly missed us and, like, drove up onto the beach, and
Jeez.
they're like yelling at us, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I didn't know, like, that you were going to drive your boat onto the freaking beach.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really love South Africa. I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
The people are super kind. It feels big. It
Yeah.
just feels big there. And I've never been, I mean, obviously it's like, it's the largest continent. Um, I'm probably wrong, but it's just you can feel the expansiveness of the place, and it just feels fabulous.
It, it's definitely somewhere that I have, like Africa just generally, I've had friends who have done, like, the volunteer stuff where they've went to like build, schools or whatever, or churches and whatnot. And they always had such an incredible time. And so it's always been tempting for me because it's like you say, I mean, South Africa's massive, and like there's so many countries in Africa. It's enormous, and like such a wide variety of stuff in there. Uh, yeah, very much on my list.
Mhm. I highly recommend it. And there are more stories that, yeah, there's a lot of stories and photos that I'll post from
Yes,
that
please
trip,
do.
because it's just very cool and really
Um,
good signage.
but really, that's always a good
Yeah,
sign. That's
yeah,
heartening to hear.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, there was a crocodile pit, and they had a sign saying, like, don't roll your wheelchair into the crocodile pit. It had, like, the little crocodile mouth and the person going down.
Amazing. Oh, I'll have to see that. That sounds
So yeah,
fantastic.
I will post that one.
Um,
You're next. What you got?
yeah, I'm thinking maybe we'll do one more,
Let's do one more.
and
Yeah,
then
and
we'll we'll
then,
we'll do a teaser for next week.
yeah, I got some good
I
ones.
Yeah, because there's two in particular that I wanted to talk about. Okay, so I guess I'll just quickly talk about Cuba.
Mhm.
Um, so probably one of my it's a tangled memory, but it's probably one of the best holidays I've ever had. Uh,
Really?
yeah,
That says a lot.
it's true actually. Um, but it was just such a like I don't think it's for everyone. And like I remember when we first landed there and it was nighttime and we were like driving. Like, what's so interesting about it is that there are certain things that are typical of nearly every other place I've been, with the exception of North Korea, which is like you can be certain you'll find like convenience stores or like, you know, petrol stations or things like that. And there is none of that there. Not nothing at all. And it's just kind of weird not having those signifiers. And you're just kind of like, well, if I want to get like some water, what do I do? You know, it's not. And we were out there in the middle of the night, and like there was a lot of there's only some streetlights were working. There was rubbish piled everywhere. There was like actual roadworks going on. And like again, most other countries I've been to, roadworks, there'll be big neon cones everywhere. There's just a
Right.
big hole in the road. And like it's so dark, I don't know how you would even notice it. So we like to get to our accommodation, we had to go like really all the way around this sort of like these holes in the streets. And once we arrived in our accommodation, it was really lovely. But like so many of those places, because it's like, you know, they were built, there was so much money and infrastructure put into place whenever the Americans were kind of in control of it. But it's kind of crumbling now. So a lot of these buildings, they have like the facade at the front that aren't wasn't in great nick. But then when you go inside, there's still this sort of like fairly robust
Just
building, you know.
translating facade
Thank
for
you.
yep, for those across the pond. Keep
Across the
going.
pond. So but like, and at first it was kind of just because it was so unfamiliar, it was a wee bit scary, but immediately it was, I really loved it. I loved the people. They were so kind, so friendly. Like they would love talking to you. And like most of them had like a side hustle, like as in they would be like, do you want some cigars? And they would have cigars in their pocket. But like if you said, like, I don't really smoke, I don't want any cigars, thank you, they would immediately go, okay, that's fine, and just talk to you. And like we had some really nice conversations with people about their feelings about living there, and like how unjust they felt that it was that they couldn't vote for a leader, and how they wish they could travel outside of the country and things like that. Which was so fascinating to just kind of hear that from somebody there. Um, but like I also loved that there was virtually no internet access. It was just so I was just able to have no internet access for like two, I think it was like 2.5 weeks. Incredible.
Yes.
And oh, pure bliss. And you know, was just the other thing I kind of loved was that there's you know, you have this idea of Cuba, and all the sort of postcards show all the old American cars that have been kept in really good condition. But Russia has been as big an influence on Cuba as, you know, as well as America. And there are tons of like really old Russian cars as well, like boxy Russian cars as well. So which you
Interesting.
just don't see in the sort of publicity stuff. You know, it's all the colorful like 1950s, 1960s kind of American cars. Uh
Volkswagens.
yes. No, it's
Yes.
like, what were they?
Oh yeah, no, from like
They're like they're like
uh-huh.
I feel like I don't
Like
remember.
Godfather Part Two.
Yes, I would say that's
Uh-huh.
about
I know
that
what
sort
you're
of
talking
time.
about. Yep,
And
yep, yep.
really,
Okay.
really beautiful stuff. But like it was just such a cool experience. I um like I love the salsa culture there. I remember like doing dancing, like going to a salsa night that the like locals were dancing at, and the like level of dancing was just through the roof in a way that I've never seen. But the food was incredible, like, you know, really inexpensive. You'd go in and you'd like pay like $10. I get like a 5 course meal, and
Wow.
insane, really insane. I lose my voice a little bit.
You're okay.
I think it was just
So
what
that no, go ahead.
I was going to say. There was one last thing was the on our last night there. Basically, we kind of spent a few days in Havana, and Havana was good, but it was a wee bit touristy. We stayed at the kind of really fancy hotel on our last night there, and it was awful. It was the worst place we stayed in the whole time. Like we stayed in Airbnbs a lot of the time, which was just basically people's back rooms, but there was something really lovely and cozy about those. This was just really clinical and awful, and like not super functional either. Like our shower didn't work, so it was all this sort of full like fight. And that night we went to Fabrica de Arts, which is this sort of big converted warehouse thing. I don't know if it's still there or not. And it was essentially just this warehouse which was filled with like, it was like a maze. So you would go upstairs and it would be like a sculpture gallery. You would, or sorry, downstairs would be a sculpture gallery, upstairs would be pictures. You would like go into a room, there was like modeling happening. There was a catwalk and they would go into a room. There was people doing an acoustic set, and it was so amazing. And like it was just kind of not. I heard it was great, and people had recommended it to us and said, "Look, you must check it out." And we had such a good time. It was so different than everything else that we'd experienced, which was very kind of authentic and local. But like this was kind of also chaotic in a way that I don't think you would get away with in a lot of sort of other sort of Western countries. Obviously,
Mhm.
and probably in terms of like regulations and stuff like that would have stopped a lot of this stuff from happening. But like there's like restaurants nestled away in different places and little like snack bars and actual bars. And it was just, I don't know, it was just such a wonderful kind of way to kind of cap that whole sort of trip off.
Sounds amazing. And yeah, it's interesting kind of the juxtaposition of your last night and like typical travel, right? You
Yeah.
you stay in a hotel, it is sanitized, it is, but like where it's at is, you know, the little restaurants that people have in their houses
Yeah.
and like all that kind of stuff. And I've been to countries that have, that's just kind of how it is.
Yeah.
And I love it because you get to interact, you get to feel, you know, a little bit of a taste of what it's like to actually like live there,
It's true.
you know? That's
And there's
awesome.
there's something to be said for that, in terms of like just sitting around like around a table with like locals that really kind of gives you a bit more understanding of that. That I just think
Mm.
like it was interesting because we encountered some other like I noticed I'm saying like far too much in this. I really or like generally speaking, I will try to stop. Um the I met some American couples when we were there who just thought it was really dirty
Oh
and
yeah.
didn't like it at all.
Oh
And
yeah.
I I was just in love with it because I liked it, felt more authentic, I think, as a result. It didn't feel like sanitized. And trips that I've been on in the past where it was just a kind of package holiday were fine when I was younger, but I find them very dull. And I would end up reading like on those trips, I would like take about 10 books with me and like read them all, and that's not
Yeah.
what I want to travel for.
Yeah. 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 I'm not like lay on in the beach and read a book
Yeah,
cover to cover. I'd rather like go and see and do.
I hear you.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, we
hear
took
you.
a cruise once and it was it's just so weird. Like you show up in a terminal and it's like kind of like North Korea, like they've built it to look a certain way. And then you walk out of the shopping area basically, and
Hmm.
it's like, oh, this is poverty,
Yeah,
or like, oh, this is an amazing place that I really like to see more of. But they try and control it so much.
it's true.
And yeah, um I like the grittier. I love the idea that yeah, it's like there's a giant hole, like watch out.
Yeah.
And if you fall in, it's your own fault.
Yeah, and I don't know whether it was true or not, but the story we were told about why a lot of things weren't fixed and why there was a lot of rubbish in the streets was that there was apparently like a state-owned tire factory and it had been raided, and as a result there was no tires for like a lot of the like government trucks and stuff, and who knows if that was true, but it
Yeah,
was it was not.
it's amazing. It's amazing.
So yeah,
Yeah, how like one thing can impact an entire country.
very much so.
Or somebody goes on strike and you're like, okay, well, guess
Guess that's it.
yeah. Okay, well, I have a lot more. I'm just gonna plug a couple things.
Yep.
Shoe Pisser at Burning Man, Maria Lightning Storm, Maria Woodford Bourbon Morning,
Hmm.
um, Harper pinching someone's naked boob, and I'll stop there.
Amazing. Okay. I have heard some of these stories, and
Uh,
the thing that
oh,
huh?
yeah. And flamingos at a gas station.
Ooh, that's an
Mhm.
interesting one. Um, the only one I got to tease, and some people know this, at least parts of this story, is that I was in Peru whenever the lockdown started.
Right. Yeah.
Um, So
You
did I
made the
make?
news.
I did make the news. So I can link to an
I may have
article.
to. I'll put it on the
I think the
website
article's
for
still
the
there.
episode.
Yeah,
It is.
it is. It. Yeah, nice.
I
Okay.
Googled you for some reason because I'm trying to like steal pictures for like social
Yeah.
media, and that it's like you're there.
Amazing. That is the story that makes
It's a
me.
good picture.
It is a good picture. I took that picture, and I also I took the pictures of the streets as well. So like I'm also officially a press photographer, I think.
I will add that to your bio.
Please. I'm a multi hyphenate, and that is one of my hyphens. So yeah, the question is then,
For you're a foreign correspondent.
I am a foreign correspondent. That's true. Amazing. So the question you will that will be, or the answer that will be revealed to you next week is, did I make it home from Peru? Can you guess?
Yeah. Yeah. And
Maybe.
yeah. And were we all scared for you?
Yeah, that's true. A lot of people were scared for me.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that next week.
Next week. Stay tuned.
But in the meantime, Beth,
Mm.
I'm getting angry with this question now as it goes on. What have I've made the cage we have made for ourselves.
I know, right?
So, Beth, what's bringing you joy this week?
I will say this. I think I said this last week too, but this is getting easier for me every week that we do
Yes.
it. I hate it when you're right. So, my daughter got her ears pierced,
Mm,
and so did I, because I was like, well, I'm here. I'll get some more. But she was so brave. And like
good for
it's a
her.
thing, right? To go in and have a needle shoved in your
It
earlobes
is.
and like, all you've known or maybe the vaccine, and I'm not getting into the vaccine debate,
Sure.
but the needles that you're around are not normally exciting ones. And
It's true.
she was like, okay, like, if is it okay if I screamed? Lady's like, you do whatever you want.
Yep.
And she didn't. She it was like I was holding her hand. She had sweaty palms. She went cold. And then as soon as it was over, she was like, that was it. And then she was like, it felt like a guinea pig was tickling my earlobe.
Amazing. Good
But
description of it.
the bravery of my child, I guess, brought me a lot of joy. And I
Yeah,
didn't
that's
think
amazing.
I was like, I gave it 50-50 that she would
Yeah.
actually go through with it. And she did. And I also, I wasn't like, you need to do this. I was like, if you want to do it, great. If you want to back out, don't care. We'll go out to lunch instead. And she's like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And then she did.
Nice. Good for
And then
her.
I did too. And I did too. And I probably would have been more nervous about myself, but I was so focused on her.
Yeah.
I don't even remember it happening.
I took you out
But
of it a wee bit.
yeah. But now like my headphones are like hurting.
I was gonna say, I'll bet.
My new
Yeah.
piercings.
Dude, my piercings hurt.
I'm so flat. I'm so
It's
rad.
true. You are
Because
very rad.
we're bringing that back. So yeah, so that's what's that brought me a lot of joy.
If if I find out the same box that has all this kind of wonderful stuff in it, there should also be some photographs with me with my like spike ear piercing and like 4 piercings at the bottom, my eyebrow
I
piercing,
didn't know that.
possibly my tongue piercing as well.
I had my tongue pierced too. What a stupid idea that was.
It's awful. Like, I have a story about that. My tongue
I
right
still
next
have
week is
the
really
scar.
gross. Yeah, me too.
It was so gross.
That was a
On the
dumb idea.
underside, when I want to gross the kids out, I'll be like, and they'll
Check
be like,
it out. Yeah.
I'm like, never do this.
I know.
That was a big needle. That was a big needle.
Yes, it was.
And they take a chunk out of your tongue.
Yes, they do. Well, I have a really gross story about it. I don't know if it is a podcast worthy story, but we can chat about it sometime. See if we can put it on pod.
We can do body mutilation.
Yeah, how fun.
What's bringing you joy?
As you said, it's getting easier for you. I think it's getting harder for me somehow. I really thought I would have lots of good options, but no.
What's
suppose
your glimmer?
What was my glimmer? I guess I'm happy that I have my weekends back. I have my Friday and Saturday nights back, so that's been great. I wasn't able to do much this weekend past, but it was just nice having them free. I did catch a movie, which was a nice experience with a friend I hadn't seen in a while, so that was good. So though the movie itself was just kind of okay. It was like one of those movies that I'd say for an hour and a half, 2 hours, I was like fully gripped, and then the ending happened, and I was like, seriously,
Mhm.
not cool. But
Do
that
you want to
was,
name the movie?
I do want to name the movie. It was Saltburn.
Okay, I haven't heard of it.
It's have you heard of the movie Promising Young Woman?
Yeah, no.
Okay, so it's the same director as
Maybe?
that.
Okay,
Yeah, it's
I'll look it up.
yeah. And again, I really loved a big chunk of the movie. It just the ending was very disappointing, but it was just nice to be with my friend, so that was the important thing.
Good.
So that's what's bringing me joy this week.
That's good.
It is.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
Absolutely, me too.
Do you want to
So
beg? Do you want to beg our listeners?
yeah, please, please. So yeah,
we,
look,
yep.
folks,
I'll let you do it.
thanks. So we need you to, if you would like, to subscribe, to like, no matter what sort of platform you are using. If you could do that, we would really appreciate it. It would really help us out in a big way, allow us to kind of extend our reach and things like that. So if you're liking what you're hearing and you could give us a wee like or subscribe, that would be lovely. Thank you.
Follow, subscribe,
Yep.
like,
All of the things.
share,
Yes.
all of the things. This is starting to have momentum,
Yes.
and that's exciting. And we just want to be here for everyone, because I hope that people find this either helpful or laugh, and maybe don't feel as
Yeah.
alone. So we are here, and we want to keep being here and be able to do this
Well, I think
forever.
forever, exactly. So I think what I would say is that yes, we do love you all, but if you like, subscribe, follow, we love you a little bit more. So if you want to if you want to bathe in the glow of our love, that's the full way to do it.
And I can't top that. You're the funny one.
Yeah. Okay. The jury's out. But yes, thank you as always, folks. Lovely to chat or to fill your ears with our words. And as always, we would like to remind you to stay bendy. That was pretty good. That was pretty good. All right. Bye. Good stuff.